So a question has been plaguing my mind recently, which is, why does it seem so important to the structure of societies that things that don't seem like they should be taboo are taboo? An example of this is, not that long ago, if someone had, I think this was mainly a problem for women, if a woman had sex with a man, she was not meant to talk about it at all. And, that still lingers now, but it's less so. Women can talk about that now, and it's okay. Like, no one cares. Well, some people do, but nowhere near as many. And obviously, current day, that seems like a stupid thing to make taboo. Like, it's a completely natural thing. It happens. But why does it seem like when enough of these seemingly normal things that everyone does becomes taboo, societies start to crumble? So I was watching a video on Camille Paglia, which, just as a side note, I did not know who this person was. What a fucking character, my god. I've got to show you some things about this woman, my fucking god. So first of all, her Wikipedia states at the top that she is an American Nazi academic, which at first sounds like a bad thing, but later on in the Wikipedia it states that her political views are libertarian, not at all Nazi. I think someone put it that way on purpose because they do not say what a Nazi academic is. I thought it meant she was like a professional Nazi. I was very confused. But no, she's not a Nazi. She has had, and probably currently still has, a lot of controversial viewpoints, which would make a lot of people, and I mean a lot of people, dislike her, which is probably why they put it that way on the Wikipedia page. And then there's this shit. Now this shit, what the fuck is this shit? Luckily, in recent times, she's changed her mind and she's a bit more normal, and she said this. Now, there is this idea that is circulating, and I don't know if it's a recent idea or if this has been an idea for a while, but there's an idea circulating that the breaking of the gender binary and what we consider to be the natural roles of each sex is part of what causes society's collapse. Now, I am not yet saying that this idea is true, or whether it holds any weight, or that it holds no weight. I don't know. I haven't looked into it. And that's what I'm going to do here. And I get a lot of people are going to shrug this off because this view is bad to them, or it's too controversial. If this view is bad enough, if this is a dangerous view, it will show itself when we look into it. You shouldn't be scared to look into controversial views, because if they're truly terrible, it will show itself. And if you don't look into controversial views, then you'll be stuck in this echo chamber of what's considered acceptable by your own moral values. But the issue is, your moral values also have to be pushed and challenged, and they change as you grow. And you need to push yourself outside of what you consider to be okay. You have to look into things of which, in this moment, you consider to be terrible, because they might not be as bad as you think. So this is part of her response to the question of what she thinks about the increase in young people identifying as not their birth sex.
I'm very concerned with this because I think that it's become a fashion, okay, that the transgender definition has become a kind of convenient label for young people who may simply feel alienated, okay, culturally for many other reasons, okay. So that in the 1950s they might have become a beatnik, in the 1960s they might have become a hippie and taken mind-expanding drugs.
Big up the psychedelics.
Okay, and so today you're encouraged to think that it's an alienation is because you are not totally identifying with your particular inherited gender definition. So I'm very concerned about this. I think that a lot of it, I think that the collaboration of the bureaucratic machinery with it has to do with the assault on masculinity, okay?
So I'm just going to stop it there real quick. The issue with that answer is that it's not only males transitioning to females, it's also females transitioning to males, but it could be that male to female transitioning is more common. So let's look at the stats on that. Okay, so I looked into it and I was actually surprised. I was 100% sure in the fact that there was more male to female transitionings than female to male, but it seems that's not the case. I'll read this out because it's quite long. Actually, I'm just going to read the conclusion. You can read the rest if you like, but it doesn't matter too much. Conclusion. Consistent with many reports, we are seeing an increasing number of gender dysphoric individuals seeking hormonal therapy. The age at initiation has been dropping over the past 25 years, and we have seen a steady increase in the number of female to male, such that the incidence now equals that of MTF. Possible reasons for these changes are discussed. Now, while I'm not going to call it medical help, because I honestly do not believe that this is a helpful way of treating people's dysphoria, the issue with this, or at least one issue with the study that stands out to me, is that female to male transitioners are probably more likely to get the medical intervention because it's more socially acceptable, so they'll get less backlash, or they're more comfortable doing that. So that could be a reason as to why it points in that direction. But regardless, it's still an interesting study, but it doesn't discount what she's saying. But what I will say is that I wouldn't say what she's saying is the only contributing factor if it is a contributing factor, because there is people on both sides switching.
Okay. So you see, the gender doesn't really exist. It's not really polarity. I mean, everything's all about expanding women's rights, but also terminating men, okay, and defining men out of existence. Masculinity is by definition toxic.
While I think the term toxic masculinity is disgusting, technically, by definition, it doesn't mean that all masculine people are toxic. It refers to the idea of usually men who are super masculine and express that in a toxic way. But as again, I think the term's still disgusting because the way it's used is not by definition, but technically by definition, that's what it means.
Okay, masculinity doesn't exist. And you see, this is the proof of it. And now, I began all of my studies. My book, Sexual Personae, began as a dissertation at Yale graduate school on androgyny. I've always been attracted, to the subject of androgyny, and that's what sexual personae is. I explored it in history. But the more I explored it, I realized that historically, the movement toward androgyny occurs in late phases of culture. Okay, as a civilization is starting to unravel. Okay, and that you can find it again and again and again through history in the Greek art. Okay, you can see it happening. All of a sudden, okay, there's a kind of there's the sculptures of handsome nude young men athletes that used to be very robust. Okay, in the archaic period, suddenly began to seem like wet noodles. Okay, toward the end.
Now this is the claim I was talking about. I couldn't actually find the claim anywhere, but I'm glad that she mentioned it in this video, because now that means we can look into this claim. So let's start with ancient Greece. So ancient Greece wasn't actually technically a country or an empire, it was a coalition of a bunch of city-states that shared similar beliefs and cultures. Due to the fact they were just a coalition of a bunch of different city-states that all had their own individual governments, that means that there was a lot of infighting, if you can call it that, where the different regions of Greece were fighting for dominance, which isn't a healthy way to have a relationship, whether you're a human or a bunch of city-states. So Alexander the Great died. By the way, Alexander the Great was the king of Macedon, which was a city in Greece. He died at like 33 and he had no successors. And if you don't know who Alexander the Great was, neither the fuck did I until I just looked it up. Basically, he would go off and conquer loads of areas. He just conquered everywhere he could and injected it with Greek culture until it was just filled to the brim entirely with Greek culture. A big issue with this is that he had conquered so many fucking places that when he died, there was nowhere to rule. There was no one to rule those places. So they put a general in charge. They sliced up all the areas and they put a general in charge of each area. The decade in which Alexander the Great reigned king, or leader, or whatever the fuck you want to call it, were the only decade in which Greek was fully united, which meant his death kinda just fucked Greece over. On top of this, the lower classes of Greece would often hold protest and overthrow leaders of the different city-states, which left a lot of areas with no rulers for certain periods and caused a lot of chaos, which meant they were very vulnerable to external attacks, which probably didn't help them during the time of which Rome fucked them in the arse and destroyed Greece society. Because Greece was like, shit, Rome's a bit like powerful, we should get rid of them, haha, JK, unless, and then they went to fight with Rome, and Rome just are absolute fucking legends, and was like, fuck you, fucked them up, and then the remaining Greek city-states were like, hey, please don't hurt us, we'll be good mates, and Rome was like, yeah, let's form an alliance, and so Rome took over the Greek Empire. Well, it's not technically an empire, but fuck you. So in short, everyone in Greece, like all the city-states and stuff, they weren't getting along with each other, which if you're going to go to war, you want to get along with the people you're going to war with, and they also didn't have as many leaders at times as they should have, because the poor were overthrowing the elites from places of power, which left the city-states vulnerable, and by proxy, the whole of Greece, which meant when Rome and Greece fucking fucked each other up, that Greece was in a weak spot, and Rome, as I said earlier, to quote myself, fucked them in the ass. So now we've discounted Pythagoras' Paglia's theory, not Pythagoras' theorem. Now we've discounted Paglia's theory, let's move on. While I started out this video with trying to figure out why it seems like when traditional societal values collapse, so does the rest of the society, I seem to have discovered that that is not the case. So they don't. That is the answer. You're welcome. That was very insightful from me. Goodbye. If you're wondering how I derived that from this video, it's because that theory was what had me thinking that when traditional values collapse, so does society. Turns out I was wrong, and that theory was wrong. I probably should have looked it up before I spent weeks pondering how that could be the fucking case. Turns out it's not the case. So I was stupid, and this video was me putting my stupidity onto a video and then realizing, damn, I was stupid and wrong, but also I've spent a few hours doing this and I don't really want to waste that time away, so I'm just going to upload it anyway and expose myself for being a dumbass that was being a bit too gullible. So yeah, look things up before you ponder them for too long.